decades. She did that with style, she did it with grace, and a big old open heart. She made us always feel like the White House was really our house, the people's house. She is your hometown girl from the south side of Chicago. Welcome, Michelle Obama! United Center. Have a seat. We're home. We're home.
Yeah, it feels good.
I gotta say, every time I fly into the city, because the city was a city of so many blessings to me, I get a little lump, a little flip-flop.
Yeah.
And so when you're flying in now, coming home, after all this place has given and nurtured you, what does that feel like?
Oh, well, first I try to trace every inch. When we're flying in, I try to point out all the neighborhoods. I was like, okay, that's Midway. I see my high school. I think that's Mom's house. Ooh, see? I still call it the Sears Tower. I don't know what the name is now, but you know, I try to trace the outlines of my city and find all the neighborhoods. That's what I'm doing. I do that every time. I'm like looking, it's like there's the lake, and do I see the planetarium, and there's my school. I think I can see everything. So yeah, I'm tracing my life over that city, and it always feels good. It really does.
Okay, I was coming in tonight because, as I said to you, I haven't been here since the Oprah show ended. I was at the United Center, and then I came in.
Oprah was one from the cold. She's like, bye y'all, it's cold.
But coming in and all the banners around the stadium for Becoming, people lined up to come in. I mean, I was thinking about your parents, your father in particular. No one could have ever imagined from 7436 Euclid Avenue, South Euclid Avenue,
Not years, no.
Yes, that it would be happening.
Yeah. And of course I missed all that because I still come in the back way through the freight elevator, by the garbage. That has been my life for the last
You gotta see it on the way out.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna ask my security, can we go out the front door? Just so I can see my sign. And they're like, ma'am, I'm sorry, get in the car.
You know, I have to say that from the first page of this book until the last, you did it. You brought it, you opened yourself up, you allowed us to see in, and let us experience the fullness of you in a way that I don't think anybody has ever done before, particularly who's been in the White House. And it's why I chose it as an Oprah's Book Club selection.
And thank you, by the way.
Well, you didn't need it, but okay. Everybody's gonna buy the book anyway, so I understand. Thank you. This is the truth though. Anytime you're looking at life from the outside in, it always looks like life is better over there, out there, up there. And you and your father used to do with the family what my father used to do in the Deuce and a Quarter, drive around.
That aspirational ride.
Take that
around the
aspirational,
neighborhood.
particularly on Sunday.
Yeah,
Looking at other rich people's houses,
We
white
did that.
people, yes. And the truth is, it doesn't get any bigger than the White House. But what you allowed us to see is that it isn't always as it seems, and that the White House is really a paradox. I'd like for you to paint the picture for us of life inside.
The White House?
Yes.
Wow. I describe it as like living in the fanciest hotel, and you have your elevator that takes you up to your room, and there's a lobby where all the action is going on, and that's the central floor. What you see on TV about the White House, the state floor, that's not the private residence. That's where all the official stuff goes on, where the red room and the blue room and the green room and all the rooms are, the east room. That's the ceremonial floor. But then up the next floor, there are 2 more floors that are the residence. And those floors are private to the families who live there. And once you get in that elevator and you come up to that floor and those elevators open, and there's usually an older black gentleman in a tuxedo who is worked at the White House for decades, often through
Is he standing there with a drink of refreshment?
No, just with a lovely smile,
Okay.
you know. Although you could have them do that too.
At any time.
I never thought of that.
At any time of the day. At any time of the day and night, can you just say, "I'd like some refreshment"?
You know, you can, but then you realize, I write about this,
Yes.
that you pay for it, right? So they tell you can order anything, and they listen very carefully because everybody listens to every word that the president says. And I used to tell Barack, don't say you want something, because then we'll have like thousands of it, you know, and then we're paying for it. So
I know, it was a shock.
if he said he liked some rare fish, he just happened to say, this is delicious. And then we get the bill at the end of the month, and it's like, you flew that fish in from China? It's like, that fish wasn't that good.
Listen,
It's like, don't say you like that fish.
everybody's just getting the book today, so I can see the surprise on people's faces when you hear her say that they had to pay for it.
Yeah, a lot of people think, you know, and this is also was sort of an interesting thing when people would say that taxpayers are paying for that. And the truth is, yes, you know, you don't pay rent and you don't pay for staff, but everything, every dish, they would count the number of peanuts that you eat and charge it back.
No.
So you get a bill at the end of it. It's not a, you know, it's not a, aw, we live in a White House, y'all. I mean, this is not a complaint. It's just something that people don't understand.
But
and
you
it
pay
should
for
be.
your own charmin,
You pay for your charmin, you pay for all your guests, the food that they eat, so all y'all who came and visited. When you were thinking, I'm just gonna take some, put it in the purse. It's like, we got the bill. No, but all the official events are paid for. There's a budget for that. But all of our private meals, all of our entertaining, whether we had family over for Thanksgiving, those things were paid for. But, you know, that's a minor part of the experience. But the house is beautiful, but it is staffed. And there are people there constantly. There are chefs and butlers. And the butlers, when we first came in, wore full formal tuxedos at all times. Black men serving people in full tuxedos.
Who've been there for presidents, like for years.
After president after president. And we love the staff. The butlers are amazing. The whole staff at the White House is amazing. And one of the first things we did, because we were trying to figure out how do you make this normal for children, you know, because Malia and Sasha were
7 and 10.
Thank you for that. You know, I won't hear the end of that. She's like, Mom didn't even know how old we were. They were young. And we were figuring out how do we keep them grounded. And the first thing we thought is like, they cannot, you know, when we're having pancakes in the morning, it's just crazy to have a man with a tuxedo coming. When you got some little girls at a sleepover and you bringing in some water, that, you know, so we canceled the tuxedos. It's like, yo, take those tuxedos off, wear some polo shirts and some slacks. Unless we did something formal, we just sort of loosened it up a bit. But other than that, the White House does feel like a home. You know, and I always say that a house is a house. And what you bring to the home is what makes it a home. And how we lived in that home was what I remember most. And people ask, do I miss the White House? And it's like, no, I don't miss the house, because we took what was important in that house with us, and it is with us. It's family, it's values, it's the friendship. So the house is beautiful, and it's historic, and, you know, it was an honor to live there, but the people in it make it what it is.
Can we talk about leaving the White House? We all saw you on the day.
All right, y'all.
The world saw you standing there with your husband and other people. And new people were coming into the White House. And now we know, we saw the Robin Roberts special, that you even had stopped trying to smile. Okay? So we see you getting on the helicopter, and I thought this, I always think in that moment when you're getting on the helicopter, I want to know what that helicopter ride is like. So when you got on the helicopter, did you think, free at last? Free at last? Or was it bittersweet, or what was it?
You know, that whole day was a trip, first of all. For so many reasons. Because also, the transition in and out of the House, the whole transition process is crazy, right? One day you're a normal family, an election happens, you're president-elect, and your life changes instantly. It's like we're shot out of a cannon. And our house in Chicago feels like a bomb went off in it, like everything stopped. You know, we go back, I still have the seasonings that were there 10 years ago. You know, the kids' beds are still the same. We didn't have time to like adjust to it. So the transition in is amazingly quick. And the transition out feels just as quick because we've lived in a place for 8 years and now we have to move and go. And the transition happens when the president-elect takes the oath of office at the Capitol. And their staffs can't get into the White House. You can't do anything in that house until the president-elect becomes the president. And the minute that happens at the Capitol, moving trucks are moving in, bringing their furniture in and taking our furniture out, all within hours of that parade. The parade is kind of like to give us moving time. You know, to just sort of like keep marching, keep on marching, go around one more time. Walk a little more slowly, we're still making your bed.
Yeah. They're getting the sofas out.
Yeah. So they clean the sofas, put wallpaper up, paint. It is miraculous. So what was happening on our last day was that Sasha's and Malia's friends, who had grown up in the White House, came to me that night and was like, we want to sleep over. And I'm like, what? You want to sleep over? Yeah, I miss being here. We want our last breakfast. Because you can get what you want to eat at the White House. So all those little girls were like, I think I'll have the fried chicken biscuit and I'm gonna have a waffle. So this is what, we're trying to move and we've got like 8 girls, little girls with their teddy bears and their blankets and they're sleeping over and then they wake up and I gotta get them out. It's like, come on, wake up. The Trumps are coming. You got to get up. You know? So in the process of me trying to get my hair done and zipping my dress, I'm like, wake up, get out. And they're crying. They're literally crying. It's like, I'm gonna miss you too, baby. I'll see you tomorrow. We're not going anywhere. So there are tears going down the elevator and we're pushing them down like the back elevator. You know, so the babies are in the back elevator. I don't know how they were getting out and where their parents were picking them up. This is on the day, minutes before they're coming.
Wow.
And there are tears and there's crying and the staff is crying and I'm trying not to cry because I said if I walk out there crying, they're gonna swear I'm crying for a different reason. Yeah. So I'm like, we have got to get it together. So it was a very emotional day. And then we go through the inauguration where I talk about how the optics on the stage were very different from the optics of our inauguration. You know, when we sat on that stage and looked around the stage, there was diversity. There were men and women and people of color and veterans and Tuskegee Airmen. There was a representation of America. And what struck me was when I sat on that stage, I saw sameness. And that was the first time it struck me that this is gonna be different. You know, and then I listened to the speech and I said, this is gonna be really different. And my heart sunk. And that day was, that moment made it harder.
So you did start out kind of with the face, you know, with your pleasant.
Yes,
First lady.
transition. I mean, what we learned from the Bushes was that our job as the former is to make the transition as easy as possible, to be on the ready. So we had been preparing for months. Our staffs had written memos and left letters. We were ready, standing at the ready to make sure that the country transitioned smoothly. So we were all anxious to be able to say, here, we did this work, now it's your turn. You know, the transition is a moment of, you know, for us, we had done our job. You know, we had done our part. We were ready
So
to
at
move
what
on to the
point did
next.
you just decide you had done the job? Had they not done the job?
Let's see.
At what point did you just say, my pleasant face, don't care anymore?
You know, it's just something in me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, you know, and I'm usually better than that, right? But that was hard. And when we got on Marine One, you know, there was the moment I think I told you this, that I was, or Gail, I said, I'm gonna get on the plane and turn around and mouth, bye Felicia. That was my joke. And everybody was like, do it girl, do it. So I'm thinking about that too. I'm like, should I do it? Should I do it? I didn't do it. But then we got on Air Force One, and I didn't write about this in the book because I had forgotten about it, because it was Valerie Jarrett or somebody who had reminded me that when I got on the plane, I think I sobbed.
You did?
For 30 minutes. And I think it was just the release of 8 years of trying to do everything perfectly. And I said to Barack, I wept in his arms and I said, that was so hard. What we just did, that was so hard. And I wanted to say that for 8 years. It's hard. And
For 30 minutes you cried.
it was a long time.
Wow.
And it wasn't just that moment, it was just the release
It's everything.
of
It's everything.
that plane, and closing that door said, yeah, there was a bit of freedom, there was a bit of, you know, passing the baton. I mean, there's something about living with, when you're the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, every issue crosses your desk. The world views the United States as a leader, and when Barack was in office, that's what happened. If something happened around the world leaders called him. They needed one of literally the weight of the world. The weight of the world. And so I'd wake up and read the paper and something bad would happen, and I knew that was my husband's responsibility. Something bad happened in another part of the world, a shooting would happen. An oil spill broke, a tornado hit, that you don't wake up and just take in the news like, wow, the world is messed up. It's like, wow, the world is messed up and your husband is responsible for fixing it. And everybody has a different set of expectations of how it should be fixed, but nobody knows what the heck the job is. Everybody is just armchair preaching about being the commander-in-chief, but nobody but the 45 people who have held that position knows what weight that is. Not the vice president, not the chief of staff, not the secretary of anything. There's just a different level of pressure on the commander-in-chief, which is why we stand ready, and we should all stand ready to help and support who is ever in that office, no matter what you think about them, because they are running the country and oftentimes they're impacting the world.
I love how you said in the book, it challenged me and humbled me. It lifted me up and shrank me down. Sometimes all at once. There were days that I felt suffocated and other times when I'd be awestruck.
Yeah. This country is beautiful. And I got to see all of that beauty. The job is hard, and this is what I try to tell people when I travel around the country, when I speak, it's like, we do live in a great nation. We really do. And I learned that on the campaign trail, first of all, because I was Michelle Obama, married to Barack Hussein Obama, going to Iowa to say, hey guys, let me tell you about myself. And here's the thing, people were open to my story. And I found that just by being me, I could connect with people. And it wasn't just me, it was the fact that that's what connects us, it's our stories.
One of the things that you say, first of all, there is no playbook for being a first lady. And what you say about being a first lady is that the first lady's power, you said, is a curious thing. Which is interesting, it's a curious thing. As soft and undefined as the role itself. And yet, you had to learn how to harness that. And you learn how to harness that and take that soft power and turn it into something strong. How did you figure out how to do that?
You know, what I realized in just looking at the first ladies that I had grown up watching, it was clear to me that the country was still ambivalent about what a first lady should be and do. And Hillary helped me understand that. She, you know, and I don't think it's out of turn to share with her that she said she was a bit shocked that coming from the governor's mansion in Arkansas, she had more leeway to be powerful. That people in Arkansas were ready for her to be a lawyer and to be a professional and have her own identity. So she thought that that would translate nationally. And it didn't, because people are still kind of confused about what the first lady should be, because we're still figuring out who women should be and can be. And we're all confused. It's not just men. Women, we sort of question each other. I got this when I said I wanted to be mom in chief. Women, some women kicked my butt for saying that one of my first priorities was to take care of my children, as if that was somehow, negating my identity as a professional. We're still ambivalent about women's roles in the world, and that, in my view, as I felt, affected the First Lady's position. So figuring out how to have impact in a way that wasn't in your face, particularly as a Black woman who is often already viewed as angry and mouthy and bossy and naggy. I had to figure out, how do I move people in a certain way and balance this perception of me that had already drummed up in the campaign, as you saw in the video.
Yes.
So I had to figure that out.
And what's interesting, we've had this conversation before, when people say these nasty things and write these nasty things and label you and put you in a silo, the angry Black woman, that stuff hurts.
Yes.
It does.
And it's important to say it, and one of the reasons why I say it is because when I talk about going high, going high doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. And I think we have to encourage young people to be able to identify their hurt when they face a bully or a coward.
Isn't it hard to go high when they just keep going low?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. When they go low, we go high, but if they keep going low, it's harder to go high.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. But here's how I think about it. And I learned this from my husband, I learned it in this role. What's the goal? And if you take your ego out of it.
Right, most important.
Right, and that's hard to do because it's hurting you and you're mad and you're frustrated, it's not fair. But when I think about going low, I think, well, if I go low, I'm really just speaking to my own selfish need to seek revenge. And that doesn't often move the needle, being motivated by revenge and anger. So speaking from that place doesn't move the conversation.
And don't you think this too, Michelle, that going low is sometimes just kind of wallowing in it? I just hear people all the time just watching cable news and talking about how bad things are, and then everybody gets together. No, you can't go to a meal or an outing without everybody just talking about how bad things are.
And then we take that out on each other in ways that we don't even know it. If you're walking around with all this anger and bitterness, somebody bumps your car or blows their horn too loud, and all of a sudden all that rage is coming out, behind the wheel or in some other inappropriate way.
So tell us what you mean and how you did this yourself, because, I think in many ways, and we can see this in Becoming, you write about it,
that the first campaign was obviously challenging and it was new, and in the beginning you didn't even believe that he was going to win. But then by 2011, when you started the second campaign, you knew for sure that that was the Republicans' #1 goal. Many Republicans, their #1 goal was to not pass a bill and to do anything they could to prevent Barack Obama from winning. Anything. And so when you know that and you're faced with that every day, how do you continually go high when you know the game has been set against you?
Our motto, our approach was do the work. Put your head down, do your job, do it excellently, and let your work speak for itself. Barack, my husband, has the beauty of understanding and having, he is always, and you know this about him, he has always had the long view, you know? I mean, because he looks at not what's going on today, but where we want to be in 50 years. And that's the long game. And if you're worried about your rewards today, it may impact what you do and how you do it. And our view was, let our work speak for itself. So, and we had a lot to do. So that was also another distraction. Having a lot to do distracts you from the pettiness. Because if you're busy trying to fix stuff and pass health care and help kids eat healthier and help military families actually get some support, you know, if you're pushing a real agenda, then you really just don't have time to play those games. And that was always Barack's view is, I'm gonna go in that Oval Office and I'm gonna do my job. And I followed his lead because it's like, I'm not gonna be the one to mess up his approach. So I have to be calm. And I have to be focused, and I'm going to put this energy into the programs and initiatives that I've started and not waste my time focused on something that I probably can't even change anyway.
Yeah, but when you first realized, when you all started to recognize that no matter what you do, that there were going to be forces that were against you, how did you manage that particular anger? Did you have a conversation about it? Did you say, we're not going to let them get us down?
You know, here's the thing that, you know, this is what we learned growing up, you know. Mom said, you know, you have an issue at school, come home, sit around the table, just talk your head off, say all the things you want to say. You know, teacher did you wrong. Let's say that teacher did me wrong. And be like, yeah, girl, She'd listen. And she'd say, eat your peanut butter and then go back to school. Because you're not staying here, you gotta go back to school and deal with it. She'd kick you out the door. And that's what we would do. We would come home in our safe space and just act out. You know, it's like,
and then
we
keep
should have
going.
said this. And I used to do that with my staff before I prep for something. They'd give me a chance to have my bubble moments. So we'd practice answers, and then I'd be able to say what I really would want to say. And like my communications director would usually be like, no, we shouldn't say that. And I call them my bubble
Optics
moments.
not good.
Optics not good. And it's like, you're right. So you count to 10 and you think about a better answer that's more appropriate. And here's the thing I found out is that usually the answer I came up with was how I really felt. The better answer was really truly how I felt more broadly. We would give ourselves time to think before we spoke.
That's a good idea.
And think before we tweet. And think for a moment before we said anything. And look, you know, people are going to read that as a crack, but let me clarify. This is what we teach our children. You do not say the first thing that comes off the top of your head. Since when did that become like a good thing? That is not a good thing.
So you would get it out, say what you wanted to say.
My bubble moments, and I'd be like, you know what, this would all go away if I said this. I dream about it, us packing up from the White House and be like, honey, you tried. We go back to Chicago.
Yeah, those are bubble moments.
My bubble moments.
I want to say that one of the biggest takeaways for me in reading Becoming is it reminded me of a line in a Toni Morrison
book, Song of Solomon.
One of my favorites.
One of my favorites too. But remember, I think it's like chapter 13, where she said, and she was loved. So when I finished this book, that's what I thought about you. And you were so loved. You were so It's the foundation. It actually is the foundation of all your becoming that started over there at 7436 South Euclid Avenue.
Yes.
Don't you still remember your address from when you were a kid?
And phone number,
And phone number.
363-4530. Mom, that's not still being used, right? It did, I just messed you up.
So, the four of you, Craig, your brother, your mom, and dad, you were like the four corners of a table, you said. Yes. Can you paint that picture? Paint that picture. Look at those cute pictures. What was life like at 7436 Euclid?
Wow.
If we were to look into the window on a Sunday afternoon,
On a Sunday, any given Sunday afternoon.
any given Sunday, particularly after report cards had come in on
After
Friday.
report on Friday. Okay, depending upon what shift my dad was on, because my dad was a shift worker, so that meant every couple of weeks he was either on afternoons or nights, and he would mark his shifts on the calendar. So we planned our life. It's like, Dad gonna be home for dinner? So we look at the calendar, it's like, oh good, he's on nights, he doesn't have to leave till late. So that would start out the day or the week, just knowing where Dad was gonna be. And on Friday night was usually fish night. We were still like that. Mom had like 7 meals, you know? You rotate them, and look, Mom, no, because I only had like 4. But we have spaghetti night.
Was it fish or was it fish sticks?
Fish sticks.
Fish sticks.
For sure.
Y'all
But then
remember
she advanced up to some fish a little bit. We had real fish, but real fish was fish sticks. We thought that the fish came like that.
Already breaded.
It's like, I love fish. There was this sad night when we'd have liver, And we knew back then, Mom, I don't think we're supposed to eat this. So you eat your liver, So there was liver night, there was steak night, where a whole family of 4, we would eat 1 T-bone and break it up, and Dad would get the tender part. And we'd be like, can I have a piece of that tender part? And it's like, why is Dad's piece a little more tender?